Man, because you were kind of probably a poorer student who just graduated, right?
For sure. There were 3 of us in like a 700 square foot apartment. You know, there's 1 bedroom divided in half. And then I slept like in the kitchen on a futon that turned into a dining table or something like that. But you know, it's just a weird arrangement. But
now, how many years did you do the consultant / for that, sir?
Yeah, it was 3 years.
Okay. So, well, you cut your teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, right out of college. So you're still young.
Yeah.
And your roommates, were they doing the same path or were they on a different path than you?
All similar stuff. I think that there was this idea that you graduate from college, spend a couple years in New York, just kind of legitimizing your education, showing that you can actually do some real work.
Wow.
And then after that, people kind of went their own way and did their own thing.
Okay. So you did the 3 years there. Yeah. What was your path after that, sir?
So at that time, Xerox was also working on digital paper. And I got linked up with some of the folks at Xerox Palo Alto Research Center and ended up, it was 1999, the heart of the .com.
Yep.
I didn't want to miss out on that. Wow, everyone was doing good work and having a lot of fun.
Right.
And so I moved out to the Bay Area to work on one of the first ebook companies.
Okay.
And at that time, it was less about the experience. It was more about security, right? So how do you have these authors who write these books put something up on the web, but still be able to appropriate value from it without it being distributed for free?
Yeah.
Wow. So it was all about digital rights management and that type of technology.
I'm not super familiar, and I know we talked to a lot of musicians, and I think that the streaming world, the digital world, has made it tough in that industry. How do you think that the digital book world, did they adapt or did they suffer the same?
Really?
So this, I was
thinking Napster's around that time too.
Napster. Yeah.
Okay. I was just, okay.
But I never used it. I didn't violate it.
Yeah, me neither.
Me neither. No copyright.
Lars in Metallica, it wasn't me.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it wasn't me.
Well, baby, you've been on my mind. I think about you all the time. Oh, I want to see your face. I don't make me wait.
You're going to like it.
Well, I'm looking forward to this because I know Len for the past 5 years, but I don't know much about Len other than,
I can't wait. It says I'm so excited. It has nothing to do with sleep. It has nothing to do with you're awesome, dude. Wait till these things I'm going to throw at you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Let me know when we're rolling. Let's get this sucker going. And again, y'all get first right refusal. Brandon, we'll send it to you. Check it out.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. And I will deny any edits that they request.
All right. Another show.
This
is a special show.
Right. I'm excited for this show. So
me too.
Yeah. So should we talk about what we're drinking today?
Let's do it. Do you want to lead it or do you want me to?
I'll tell you what. I'll talk about it because this is my favorite drink to drink on the golf course.
Okay.
It's light. It's refreshing. It's Ruby Red.
Oh,
Deep Eddy, right here in Austin, Texas. Dripping Springs, technically, right around the corner. They've got the new distillery. It's awesome.
Okay.
But it's a grapefruit flavor, and somehow I just fell in love with grapefruit in the last couple of years. So we're gonna sip on some grapefruit flavored Deep Eddy Ruby Red.
Also, we got a little Topo
Tito's.
Chico in there. And for our guests, we have water. So this is how we start. Brandon's going to introduce you, and then we will thank you for sleeping around with Dr. Brandon and Matthew.
Yeah.
Thank you, Len.
Thank you.
Let's do an official introduction. And Brandon, I think you should do it.
Yeah, well, really honored to have our guest on the podcast today. This podcast has been so much fun. We brought a lot of interesting people. We talk music, we talk business, we talk sleep.
Yep.
And I think just one of the industry leaders out there today in the CEO of ProSomnus, and it's Len Liptak. So thank you, Len, for being here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's just address the elephant in the room right now. Us 3 played college sports. And Len, I am just blown away. 1995, all Ivy soccer team.
In 94.
It said 95.
Both.
94 and 95. So
okay.
Thanks.
So here's
soccer.
something.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We all played college sports, but you actually won something. So I just thought that was so cool. You went to Brown?
Yeah, that's right.
Ivy League school, man.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. When I read that, I was like, what the heck?
Well, my dad was a baseball player. My grandfather was a baseball player. Every holiday, they would have a session about who was the better baseball player. So the last thing I wanted to do was be a baseball player because I wanted nothing to do with that conversation.
Yeah,
right.
And I figured I'd play the sport they were least likely to understand, which was soccer. So that's the logic.
Full
behind
disclosure.
it.
Yeah.
I played baseball.
Yeah.
Least likely, we had a guest in on our podcast who loves football, is what he calls it. American football.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Well, in Texas, we don't say the word soccer without following it with the word sucks. So every time it's soccer sucks.
Right.
Yeah. So I had a high school coach tell me that one time.
Well, I just thought that was really neat. And what an awesome experience. Number one, it's an honor to have you here, sir.
Thanks.
Whenever Brandon mentioned, we have a CEO of a major company. So for you guys to make time, just means the world. Today, we're going to talk about industry, right?
Cool.
We're obviously going to talk about your college days.
Yeah.
You have so much industry experience, sir. I did my little Google searches and stuff, and man, you've had experience all across the medical world. And to already be your age, and be a CEO, and how you started ProSomnus, I just want to dive all the way in. But
Sure.
Where should we start, Brandon?
Well, I don't know. I'd like to hear more about Brown University. And you know what?
So where did you grow up, Len?
Yeah.
I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
Grew up in Connecticut.
So you grew up there, and did you always have like this idea you said about the sports thing? But obviously, did you get a scholarship to Brown to play, or were obviously intellect? But
no athletic scholarships at Ivies, but I wanted to be far enough away from home that my mom and dad wouldn't show up in the common room unexpectedly. But I wanted to be close enough home where I could go home if I wanted to, because I'm more of a kind of a homebody type of guy.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
It was really not about necessarily education or pedigree and that stuff. It was more about just kind of fitting what I wanted to do at that stage of my life.
Well, let me ask you something. So when you were getting to your senior year, obviously you had other offers. For someone who gets accepted into Brown, sir, I'm sure you had other schools.
Sure.
Was there anything that was close number two, or where you were going to go and then it turned to Brown?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to go to Yale. But then I just thought, okay, what if my mom shows up in the common room on a Saturday night because she misses me? I could totally see my mom doing that.
Yeah. I could totally see my mom doing that too.
It scared the heck out of me. So I thought I need to go far enough away where it's a good enough drive where she's not going to show up unexpected.
That is awesome that was your driving force.
I know. It all makes sense, right?
Well, I'm trying to think back to when I was that age, 17, 18. You're probably, you're right.
Exactly.
But that's awesome. So how was your experience at Brown?
It's good. I really enjoyed my time there. So from a sports perspective, what I liked about the soccer team at Brown was they were building a program.
Cool.
I wanted to be part of building something.
Yeah.
And it kind of fits in with, I like building companies. It's like
I
building things.
see a pattern.
And my grandfather and my dad were both kind of very mechanically inclined. They just like to physically build things. And that kind of carried over into kind of what I like to do. I like to be part of building, whether it's building a soccer program or building companies, whatever it is. I just like that idea of doing something that makes a difference, makes an impact.
That rings so true. And I love hearing that because I'm the same way. That's the entrepreneurial mindset. And so did you have anything before Brown, young age, high school, in Brown, as you were going through college, did you already have this entrepreneurial mindset as well in terms of anything geared towards business, or did that come later?
So this is going to be a corny story, but so I learned math from my grandmother. She had this like penny store in the basement, and every time she would use a thing of oatmeal or soup, she'd clean it up and put it on the shelf and put a price on it. And so I would, then she would kind of come up to the store and pretend she was a customer. Then I would kind of interact with her and make change and do all that stuff. So
that's awesome.
From a very early age, it was totally, there was no intent to teach me math or to teach me about business, but it was just, part of growing up, something I really enjoyed doing all the time with my grandmother. And then it kind of evolved from there into just doing things because I was interested in school and interested in athletics. Time management was really important for me. So my first job, I got this great gig at a bike store where they would pay me $20 to assemble a bike. The bikes would come in these big brown cardboard boxes, and the owner would say, okay, I need 5 10 speeds, 3 BMX bikes, 1 mountain bike. and he would just let me come in whenever I needed to during the week.
Oh, that's
midnight,
cool.
2 a.m,
Right.
7 o'clock, but so it was perfect. So I could fit it into my lifestyle, get a couple bikes built, make some money.
Make a little cash.
Yeah. So I mean, so very kind of at that point, very frugal, but around, all the things I was doing, I was always around kind of the businesses and trying to think about how they worked and what worked.
I guess I'm always fascinated because I'm a dumb jock for someone who goes to an Ivy school, right? And I could just imagine your experience. And remember, he went to UT. So your experience had to be totally different. It had to be education one, a true student athlete.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I'm saying your time there. I mean, it had to, I just can't imagine. What was your major?
Yeah.
For undergrad?
Economics.
Okay.
There
So
was a
you've
funny
always-
moment where we lost to UVA in the NCAA soccer tournament, and our coach said, well, at least you guys have higher SAT scores. That was, that made us feel a lot better about losing in the quarterfinals.
Well, that's always the joke.
right? Yeah.
Ivy League football, they go down the championship and whoever loses is still going to have a better job than
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you leave Brown, and did you already kind of know I'm getting into the medical? Because I do know you have other degrees, sir. Or did you just go straight through to another school?
No, I mean my first job out of school, I went to New York and I was a consultant. I worked for Kraft Foods. I worked for Xerox, Molson. All these different companies would come in but at that time, what I found was I really gravitated towards when they were launching new products.
Yeah.
And so Xerox, for example, at that time was transitioning from traditional work group copiers to networked copiers or printers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Kraft Foods would come out with V8 Splash or some new type of salsa, right?
Right.
And so sometimes it was just, it was really interesting stuff, but I really enjoyed going to the focus groups, listening to what the customers were saying about how to make their products better, what was working, what wasn't working, or why they chose a competitive product versus their product. I just found myself really gravitating towards that. So in the consulting role, rather than working on how do we grow their existing business or how do we stop any attrition, I found myself gravitating towards wanting to work on the new products that those companies were developing.
Wow. So when that time, did you live in the city? Did you live on the outskirts?
No, I lived in the city. We called it Curry Hill. So it's Murray Hill in New York.
Yep, I know.
And it's where all the cabbies park during lunchtime and get food. So we call it Curry Hill. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. I'm still paying for it, by the way. I still think I have debt from the first apartment I had in New York.
So you just took what I was going to say. So I used to have to, a long time ago, I was in pharmaceutical sales for a company called Forrest, which has been bought and resold many times. And I would have to go to Comac once a quarter. And I didn't understand when someone said, you want to go to the city? Us Southerners, we call it New York City, like city. But there were people who actually lived in Comac that worked in the city.
Right.
So you're probably familiar with this. Brandon, this is the craziest thing. They literally leave their house, they drive their house, and they drive to a train station. The train station drives them so far, then they go into the subway. Then the subway takes them out, they get on a cab. And it's like they spend most of their day trying to get to the city. That's why I had to ask. I was like, man, because you were kind of probably a poorer student who just graduated, right?
For sure. There were 3 of us in like a 700 square foot apartment. It was 1 bedroom divided in half. And then I slept like in the kitchen on a futon that turned into a dining table or something like that. But it was just a weird arrangement. But
now, how many years did you do the consultant / for that, sir?
Yeah, it was 3 years.
Okay. So, you cut your teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, right out of college. So you're still young.
Yeah.
And your roommates, were they doing the same path or were they on a different path than you?
All similar stuff. I think that there was this idea that you graduate from college, spend a couple years in New York, just kind of legitimizing your education, showing that you can actually do some real work.
Wow.
And then after that, people kind of went their own way and did their own thing.
Okay. So you did the 3 years there. What was your path after that, sir?
So at that time, Xerox was also working on digital paper. And I got linked up with some of the folks at Xerox Palo Alto Research Center and ended up, it was 1999, the heart of the .com.
Yep.
I didn't want to miss out on that.
Wow,
Everyone
so
was doing good work and having a lot of fun.
Right.
And so I moved out to the Bay Area to work on one of the first ebook companies.
Okay.
And at that time, it was less about the experience. It was more about security, right? So how do you have these authors who write these books put something up on the web, but still be able to appropriate value from it without it being distributed for free?
Yeah.
So it's all about digital rights management and that type of technology.
I'm not super familiar, and I know we talked to a lot of musicians, and I think that the streaming world, the digital world, has made it tough in that industry. How do you think that the digital book world, did they adapt or did they suffer the same?
Really?
So this I
was thinking Napster's around that time too.
Napster, totally Napster. Yeah.
Okay, I was just okay.
But I never used it. I didn't violate it.
Yeah, me neither.
No,
Me neither.
No
Yeah,
copyright.
me neither.
Lars in Metallica, it wasn't me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it wasn't me.
So I learned some things. It was a great education because so in the book world, what's interesting is very little of the profit actually ends up with the author. When you subtract the costs of the paper, the distribution, the retail, and the whole premise with ebooks back then was if you can get rid of paper, get rid of retail, a lot more money could go to the author, even if you charged less money for the book. Right? You can cut the cost of the book in half, and the authors, the agents, the publishers, the editors can all still make more money just by getting rid of that physical good. The shipping companies, like FedEx or UPS, they arguably make more money off the books than the authors do because of the cost of shipping. So that was the premise. That was the premise. But it was a very interesting insight into kind of what digital technologies can do.
Yeah, because you're on the cusp and right at the heart of it over there in Bay Area. So that had to be a cool scene. Huh?
It was a cool scene. It was a good time. So the I should say this.
Remember, you can look at it.
You should say everything you think of saying. You should say.
Let's put it this way: the CEO of my company, she was dating the CEO of a startup who ended up being one of the most prominent CEOs.
So Jeff Bezos and her were I'm just kidding, Jeff Bezos. Don't
actually somebody more important than that. So in my opinion, maybe not as wealthy, but more important.
Man,
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Can we please add me? Dun dun dun.
I know. But they, so they were, so it was just interesting to like kind of walk outside. We'd have a little mixer party and like, here's my boss snogging with like, it was just an interesting time, and people were young, they were having fun, they were idealistic. There was money being invested for people to pursue their dreams. It was a really great
There had to be this freedom going on. I imagine this during that time. Kind of harken back even to kind of the 70s where there was like these new ideas are coming out and there's new technologies, but they're going to these young people for the first time saying, we're listening. Yeah. And then because you were young and here are these ideas. So it just had to be fun. Like,
yeah, I mean, and especially in the Bay Area and especially with all the .com kind
coming from that cold weather and smelling like curry. Living with two dudes. Now you're at the beautiful weather.
That's kind of the question, because when I'm in San Francisco now, you've got like the same 700 square foot apartment, but like 8 people sharing it.
Right.
And all 8 people are making good money too.
And just to pay for a parking spot costs as much as that 700 square foot apartment in San Francisco.
Probably.
If you're in Palo Alto, you can lease space in your backyard and let people put up a tent. Right, that's how desperate people are.
Wow.
Because the thing is though that people move there because they're on a mission. Right, they're not looking to establish community. They're not looking to raise a family. They're looking to go there, develop their idea. If it succeeds, wonderful. If it fails, they go back home and do their next thing or move on to the next project. So it's a very different mindset. Like I was saying to someone else the other night, we have this hillside in our backyard, and like Saturday night, I'm in the backyard, fire pits on, I'm just hanging out, like just relaxing on a Saturday night. These guys on the ridge behind the house, like talking. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's kids up there or teens? No, it was 2 guys talking about their business model. That's Saturday night, just randomly. I think that's one of the cool things about that area is that people have these dreams, these ideas, rooted in good understandings of technology, but they feel like they're empowered to go chase those dreams. They can get the capital. They can access really smart people in the area who can help them succeed.
So there was at that time there was a little bit of the I mean I guess that led up to like the .com bust.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh
at that
yeah.
time.
With that
Sure.
You know,
Yep.
and so then there was a little bit of a lull. Did that impact what you were doing at the time, or did it have an impact on what you did?
Because
Yeah, it did.
yeah.
Yeah, it did. I went to business school during
Okay.
that time. That's
Okay.
exactly
So you're like,
what I did.
okay.
The company I worked for was acquired by a larger company. But one of the things I learned in the Bay Area is there were two types of people there: those who were successful because they were lucky, and those who were
Wow.
successful because they actually really were good at what they were doing.
Wow.
And I wanted to be the latter. I mean, I didn't mind the luck. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We'll all take
Yeah.
luck if
Yeah.
it comes along. But I really wanted to be able to manufacture success. And the
Mhm.
people who I saw as successful serial entrepreneurs, they had master's degrees. They
Mhm.
spent time working at a Procter & Gamble or an IBM or a large established company. They learned the culture of success. They learned process. And so when the .com bust happened and the company that I was with was acquired, I thought this would be a great time to go to business school and kind of learn how to do it the right way, because I wanted to be that professional serial entrepreneur, not just somebody who happens to get lucky.
And again, because I have never met you before, I just, searched you. Did you go back to Minnesota or did you stay? Oh, okay.
I did.
So you were a coastal. Okay.
Well, I went back to Minnesota, great grad school program there.
Right.
Plus, one of the companies that I thought did it well was 3M Company.
Yep.
They have a really good spirit of entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
They really focus on innovation, developing new products and insights. And so that to me allowed me to do both the things that I felt like I was missing in my background.
Okay.
And get a good solid educational background, master's degree, but then also work with 3M Company and learn from one of the world-class companies at innovation.
Absolutely.
So you worked with 3M while you were going through business school.
That's right.
Okay, cool. Now, is that what pushed you first into dentistry then? Was working for 3M? Because
Sure.
okay.
You're jumping because there's a great segment in there too. I mean, you've had a career, my friend. Yeah.
Thanks.
I want to hear what you did after
Well,
3M.
yeah, well,
Go ahead.
3M does so much. Okay, so maybe not. Maybe we went from 3M to something else before dentistry, or because 3M's heavy in the dental market.
Yeah.
And I know that there's that, and I know that there's the lab that comes later, but so I guess lead us up through that since I jumped ahead.
So
Asshole.
But you're a dentist and you love this stuff. And I am an asshole.
yeah.
I'm just trying to do an interview.
No,
You know this guy.
It'll all work out. It's all good. But so at 3M, I was involved in what they had, a leadership development, management development program. A lot of kids out of grad school get into that. And then they basically do projects for different divisions of 3M, learn the businesses of 3M and figure out where they want to go. And I was very much going down the track of traffic safety. And I was doing projects with the traffic safety division. We were working on how to create next generation highways and roads, how to turn regular roads into smart roads. Can we embed RFID chips into street signs, and pavement markings? I mean, how do we put RFID tags and different things into license plates? And we were thinking about the transportation of the future.
Wow.
I was very much going down that path. There was a lot of the different projects that I was doing at the time. And one night I happened to be one of the folks working late, one of the only folks working late on a summer night. And the head of 3M Dental runs downstairs and says, I need somebody to help me put together a model to buy Invisalign. And this was in 2003, 2004.
Wow. I was thinking Invisalign was, wow. Okay.
They were very, very early stage.
Okay.
But it was a completely defensive play, right? So the VP was concerned that Invisalign had said, we don't recommend 3M impression material. We recommend this other impression material. And there was some resentment towards that. So the idea was, we'll just buy them and put them on a business or we'll just buy them. And, and so I went to work. In that process, 3M has this group called the Expertise Panel.
Okay.
And I got to interview a whole bunch of dentists about how they would feel about if 3M were to develop this technology or buy this company, what would happen. And it was fantastic. Super nice people, super smart, a lot of really great insights. And that kind of launched me down this path of dentistry and orthodontics. So after a couple years in this program, they pretty much kick you out. Like, okay, now it's time. You've had enough fun. Go do your thing. So I ended up going with 3M dental division, specifically in orthodontics. After this, really was this Invisalign project that steered my career in that direction.
Now, obviously, they didn't buy Invisalign in 2003.
We failed 3 times to try.
Just out of curiosity, what was offered to buy Invisalign in 2003?
Oh, do you know the number?
Yeah.
I can't say, but it was a very, so
can we say over under?
Sure.
$50,000.
Way over.
See,
the thing is though, that, they wouldn't be the company they are today if 3M had acquired them. So it's hard to know whether it would have been a good investment.
Good point.
What would you say multiple wise
they
are worth today compared to 2003?
Oh, hundreds of times more.
Yeah. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, hundreds of
Oh,
times.
I know. That's why when you said the year, I was like, Invisalign was around.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Hundreds of times more. Maybe more than that.
Yeah. And 3M's even moved on. They have their own aligners,
the Clarity aligners,
Clarity aligners now that are starting to kind of make way. I mean, Invisalign has a lot of competitors now, but they're all catching up. I think they're all still playing catch up. In my opinion, do you think anybody's going to catch up?
I think what Invisalign has done really well is, I think that the worst kept secret in dentistry was that some of Invisalign's patents were timing out a few years ago. And so all the major manufacturers were lining up to get their technology ready to go. And I thought Invisalign did something really smart, whereas rather than just relying on a patent and the technology of the patent, they actually invested to create a brand, which is a much stronger source of competitive advantage than just a simple patent. So I thought they were very shrewd to do that. And they are very good at driving patients to dental practices through their direct consumer marketing and through their brand.
100%.
And a lot of the major manufacturers don't have any competency doing that. They have competency in making a clear aligner, and eventually they'll make some inroads. But if a dentist really values the patients that are being driven to their practice by Invisalign's direct-to-consumer marketing,
they're going to continue to.
Then they're going to continue. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, it's very interesting to me. And that's why I say I'm not sure they'd be quite the same company, because historically 3M's been a little reluctant to get a direct-to-consumer marketing. And so would they have been able to pivot this great technology platform into a consumer brand? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
But Invisalign's done that very
well. I'm still hung up on the fact that, here we are with the CEO of ProSomnus, and you were literally doing like signs, license plates, focusing on future travel,
traffic patterns.
It just blows my mind. I'm sitting there going, okay, I just talked about this story on Comac, and you're probably going, I could have solved it. But no, so I appreciate you sharing.
Well, and completely by chance that you're working late one night. And I mean, if that hadn't have happened, you may never have been close to dentistry.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and I've always said, I never believe in coincidence, right? I think everything happens for a reason. And so you were meant to be there at that time. So take us on the journey. So, and I do apologize. So you did go straight into, I thought there was a stop before that.
Yeah.
So you go just to 3M to the orthodontic side.
That's right.
And then how long were you there before the next step?
Yeah, so 3M Orthodontics, I was there for a couple years. The key thing, though, that I think is relevant to the ProSomnus story is that in orthodontics at that time, there was a shift from standard orthodontic prescriptions to personalized orthodontic prescriptions.
Okay.
There used to be just standard torque brackets, standard tip brackets.
Right.
And around the time that I started at 3M, there were starting to be prescriptions embedded into the design of the brackets based on the treatment plan, based on the difference between the malocclusion and the target occlusion, custom bent arch wires, all these types of things. So I got some really interesting insights into what customization technology can do in terms of efficiency and outcomes and quality.
100%. Yeah.
And then I kind of put them on the shelf for a little while, but that thinking very much came into ProSomnus down the road. But that's what we worked on at 3M, was taking orthodontics from the standard orthodontic one size fits all, one prescription fits all type of approach to prescription orthodontic appliances that match the treatment plan for that specific patient.
Yeah, and I've heard it been called is it's personalized prescription of that device or whatever it was back then, because you're right. It was just, and I'm new at this, so I've only been doing this a year, but it just seems to me like there was that personalized touch that came into it, and so that seed was planted back then.
That's right.
And you're like, started thinking about, okay.
Yep, that's right. And we got into intraoral scanning. So we always looked at it as 3 steps, right? First is data capture. So how do you get the intraoral scan? And 3M went out and bought the Lava COS, the Brontis scanner, guys out of MIT and Harvard who built that product, did a great job. And we kind of embraced that at 3M as an alternative to traditional impressions. But that was a way to get data in, or impression scanning technologies as a way to get data into the system.
Can I ask you a question? Because I don't, I'm a guy who had braces, and I'm 48, and I can remember getting them and just having that impression and all that. And so, when did that change? Was the true option? What year is that, guys?
Oh man, it's still changing.
Yeah, I don't
that's the thing. So
I still run into dentists who still do impressions, but there is this option, right?
There is. I think if you were to poll dental labs, they would still say that 60 to 70% of the orders that come in are still with traditional impressions, or at least like triple tray, like quadrant impressions versus intraoral scanning.
So when was the first, I should know this probably, but when was the first scan?
That's definitely a Len question. I can tell you, we adopted scanners not until, Len might even tell me when we adopted scanners. We adopted scanners, I'm going to say,
so it's still new.
We had a 3M scanner for a while with one lab, and then we got the Trios, and then now we have the Itero as well. And that was probably, we really jumped in 4 years ago, three to 4 years ago. Okay. And so, for me as a consumer of scanners and a user, there was these iterations of, CERAC came out, but you had to have the powder. You had to have this. Yeah. You couldn't just go in the mouth and scan and get a quality product. You had to first cover the teeth with like this film, and that film created a reflective whatever that the scanner could pick up to get the 3 dimensions. And to me, that was messy. It was time consuming. It took longer than doing an impression, and the scanners were expensive.
I was going to say cost.
And so, the scanner company's always like, well, you're going to save because you don't have the PVS impressions, but they don't factor in the time and the inconvenience and the remakes and, all those kinds of things. And so I've never, while I'm an adapter of technology, I've always been a little bit hesitant to jump in right when the technology first comes out, because it's just like the fucking iPhone. Like every time it comes out, there's going to be one coming next year that's better, and so that's like the frustrating thing about scanners and things like that is, but from a patient experience standpoint, I think the technology has jumped in the last 10 years. So scanners have been, when's the first scanner? Like let's say 12 years ago, 13 years ago?
I think CERAC's 25 years now.
So that's what I was going to say.
CERAC's 25 years, 2007, let's say, 2007, 2008 is when 3M looked at the Brontis scanner. Yeah. A company called Cadent had a scanner that became the Itero, and Invisalign ended up acquiring Cadent to really get that going and tuned it for full arch intraoral scanning. Right. But 25, I think CERAC's been 25 years, but it's really been the last several years that we started to see
now
a more
they're starting to really step up. Yeah.
But we still use impression material too, and now we're going to the technology is so freaking amazing. Like the last 8 years, I think in dentistry, whether it's sleep, whether it's implants, whether it's guided surgery, bone reduction, the technology just had this impact that's, I'll never go back and do it the other way. Yeah. It
was interesting because I remember being at 3M and certain folks there thinking, well, dentistry's kind of hit a brick wall for innovation. Absolutely not.
No,
it's just getting started. I think there were some challenges with proving the value proposition, right? If somebody is taking an Algin impression for 25 cents, why would they buy a $40,000 scanner? Right. But prices have come down and value's been proven out. So it's taken some time. Dentistry is one of the slower industries to adopt new technologies for a lot of very good reasons. Healthcare in general is slow to adopt new technologies, as they should be, because you're treating patients at the end of the day. You don't want them to be the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
But no, there is still so much room to go.
Do you think that it's because dentists are worried about being, treating their patients like guinea pigs, or do you think it's just because dentists are kind of morons?
Yeah. So, well, they're
just not.
Hold on, present company not included.
No.
I work with a lot of dentists, Len, and
I do too.
and the number one thing when we start working with dentists is to try and get them to stop thinking like dentists.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they get stuck on things that from a business standpoint don't make sense. And, I think, clinicians do that too. People that are very artistic do that too. They're so focused on their art that they don't look at the business side of it because they're only concerned about their art. And I think that's where we fall.
Well, I would still do differently. So one of my first ever visits to a dental practice, an orthodontic practice, was one of the most educational experiences for me. So one of my mentors, guy Barry Grant at 3M, responsible for commercializing half the SKUs in the orthodontic catalog. Great guy. I was the corporate kid who got the job, and so he took me under his wing and just took every opportunity to rib me and show me the ropes and legitimize me. So he took me out to meet one of our toughest KOLs, this guy, Anoop Sandhi, out in Carmel, Indiana. Great guy, super great guy, articulate, smart, cared about patients. And so I shadowed Anoop around for the day with Barry, and we asked questions and I observed and all this cool stuff. And at the end of the day, he sat me down and he goes, "Look, Len, I'm gonna make your life really easy as a product person, okay? I have 4 houses, multiple sports cars. I've paid for all my kids' college many times over. I have a part ownership in a private jet. Why the hell should I change what I'm doing for you? Your product has to be so good that I'm willing to put all of that at risk to try something new." So he raised the bar for me and really established this idea that incremental innovations, when dentists are generally doing a really good job with a high standard of care, with patients who arguably have relatively low dental IQ or healthcare IQ, they don't necessarily know whether the dentist is doing a good job or a bad job, or the doctor's doing a good job or a bad job. And so he established this threshold for me that said, if you're going to work on a new product, it has to be many multiples better than what I'm currently doing. Otherwise, don't waste my time. Why would I put all this at risk? And so that made an impression upon me very early on, that if you're going to innovate, if you're going to do something, it's really got to make an impact. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to get anybody's attention.
So I got to do the follow-up as a sales guy.
Yeah.
Did you convert him?
Yeah. Did you convert him?
Well, he was already our key opinion leader.
Yeah,
right?
I heard
So we didn't have to convert him, but
he gave that as a lesson for. Okay, I got you.
So yeah, exactly. So when I'm working on future products, it has to be significantly better. Don't waste your time.
Gotcha.
Don't waste anyone's time. And so we worked with him on a series of a bunch of different new products over the years, and many successful, some more, some less.
I mean, I've met a lot of dentists, and that's a lot of houses, a lot of vehicles, a lot of kids in college, and a jet.
He's a little bit of an outlier for sure. It was dramatic. It was definitely dramatic.
I was gonna say that's definitely not most dentists, and it's definitely
I kind of want to meet this guy now.
And it's definitely not dentists that are graduating from dental school today with the debt that we have now.
Man, but, I wish I had Indiana as my territory.
Fucking orthodontist,
and then he's orthodontist on top of it. Right? Oh exactly. Yeah. So I mean, but.
So that's good. So you were still with 3M. That's cool how you talked about I call it cutting your teeth. That's a Southern term.
Yeah.
That he took you under his wing and basically said, this is how you're going to do it.
Well, Barry was the exact opposite of me, right? He started as a junior sales rep working a territory in Florida, right? Just making 5, 6, 7, 8 calls a day, just trying to make a commission check, right?
Yep.
And then he was good enough to get promoted into regional sales management, and then got promoted into marketing, and then got promoted into a kind of a more of a general management job, and did great for himself. But he he fought his way up the ladder, whereas he looked at me, he's like, here's the kid with the grad school. He's got all the academic stuff, but
he went to Brown.
He doesn't know anything about
played
business.
soccer.
Got
great hair.
Exactly. So, it was that type of thing. So we got along really
Smells
well.
like curry still.
So how did we go from 3M Orthodontics to ProSomnus Sleep?
Yeah, sure.
Take me through that. ProSomnus is a relatively, I'm going to say, new company. I don't.
Sure.
When did ProSomnus come about?
Yeah. So ProSomnus became a standalone company really in late 2016.
Okay, so we're talking 5.
That's right. 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. Yeah. 5 years. So at 3M, we had done a series of acquisitions. Part of my career plan would have been to relocate to Europe to consolidate some acquisitions into a corporate group. And we had 2 young kids at home, and it just didn't seem to be the right. It was a dream job. It was a dream opportunity. Any other time I would have loved to have done that job, but it just didn't fit with
the plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that always was a limitation in the digital dentistry workflow up to that point were the dental labs, right? So we had this really beautiful, elegant digital workflow, and the dental labs would come along and say, "What's digital?
Yeah.
We don't have email."
Yeah.
You hear the, you've got mail, AOL, and so they were always, great people, hardworking. I mean, to me, dental lab people are the epitome of the American dream, right? They work their tails off. They're building their business, but they weren't necessarily a great fit for this modern digital workflow at the time. So I got hooked up with, at the time there was this private equity group out of New York, Health Point Capital, that were looking to use digital technologies as a way to enhance the dental laboratory experience. So it seemed like a really great opportunity for me. Another important part of the story is, so my wife is from California. So when I moved to Minnesota for 3M, she basically said,
wasn't having that.
I'll give you a couple years, but if this isn't resolved in 3 years, I'm going to be moving back. So she,
with or without you.
And to her credit, for the 3 years she was there, I saw her every minus 10 degrees. She would run every day around Lake Harriet, Lake Calhoun.
That's dedication.
She was dedicated. She was all in until she wasn't all in. Then she was gone. So
I like the time frame.
So 3M Dental happened to be in California, in Southern California. And then this job happened to be in the Bay Areas, which is where she's from. She's 5th generation San Francisco kid. And
by the way, one of my favorite places in North America is San Mateo. The redwoods, and I think it's beautiful up there. So just north of San Francisco.
That's where she lived when I met her. So she lived in San Mateo. Yeah.
I love it up there.
It's a good place.
So there was some motivation internally too to get, but Europe would have been nice.
It would have been. And I had spent a lot of time over there.
Okay.
A lot of the orthodontic growth opportunity was in Europe. Versus in North America. So I spent a lot of time traveling around Europe, working with the European team, and really enjoyed it. Like I said, any other time in my life, it would have been a great career experience, and continue to put me on the development track at 3M. It would have been fantastic. But
another plan.
Kids and wife and all that stuff were,
Well, again, everything happens
absolutely
for a reason. Yeah. So Health Point Capital.
Yeah.
You were working for them, with them?
Yeah. It's kind of one and the same. They were the majority owner of the dental lab. So they had a controlling ownership position. The board of directors was comprised mostly of Health Point Capital people. So it's one and the same. They're the owners of the company.
Okay.
But they were trying to plug that gap in the digital dental workflow, which I found attractive. And so my job was basically to develop that business, get proof of concept, and then, because it's private equity, build up the value and then sell it to somebody else who can then take it to the next level. So that's basically what we did. I worked for a couple of years with the Microdental Laboratories group. Great people, really talented. Like I said, a lot of people who were just the walking, living incarnate of the American dream. These guys who just made great businesses, and developed great reputations themselves, and technical expertise and relationships with local dentists. Great stuff. And to their credit, they were very open to technology as a way to help expand what they're doing. And so this is probably another kind of point in my career journey that's worth pointing out. So at the time, a lot of other dental labs and other companies were using technology as a way to get cost out, to reduce labor, right?
That makes sense.
It makes sense. It's a very easy ROI. But one of the kind of the big impressions that was made on me was Steve Jobs' first ever annual shareholder meeting. Right. So he shows up to this meeting 30 minutes late.
Black turtleneck.
No, not at that time. He was even before black turtleneck.
Oh, whoa.
It's amazing on YouTube. It's on YouTube. You should Google it. It's read it, watch it on YouTube. But he shows up like a half hour late. All the investors are pissed off. Like, who the hell is this guy? He's keeping us all waiting.
Len, you know who else is on YouTube?
Who's that?
Sleeping Around the podcast.
I was about to say,
So if just to interrupt for a minute, if you want to see us on YouTube in video, because a lot of our listeners are on Spotify,
right,
or
actually
Apple.
not true. Mostly Apple.
Mostly
80%
Apple.
Apple.
80% Apple.
Okay.
So a lot of Apple listeners, they can't see us.
Yeah.
Now, Matthew has a face for radio.
Yeah.
But I, on the other hand, no, I'm just kidding. But
No,
so if you want to see us on YouTube, we'd love for you to go to YouTube, subscribe, like the channel, subscribe. So I'm so sorry, Steve. I couldn't pass that up. Steve Jobs shows up.
Shows up half hour late. Everyone's pissed off at him. Like, what the hell is he doing? Who is this guy? And he proceeds to tell the most incredible story that he's watching kids at the local Sunnyvale Elementary School use Apple computers for the first time. And he launches into this Popular Mechanics article about how they looked at propulsion, right? And how when you look at propulsion or many different forms of transportation, humans are average, right? The most efficient form of propulsion is a bird, and they burn this many calories to go this far, and the humans are crap at it. When it comes to running, humans aren't even close. There's so many animals that can run faster than humans. When it comes to swimming, humans are crap. But he then says, but if you give humans a tool like a bicycle or a boat or whatever, humans plus the tool can outperform any animal. That's what makes it the dominant species. And it's an incredibly insightful thing. And then he talks about how kids are growing up with this new tool called a computer, which is going to allow them to revolutionize the world and really take the human existence to a new level, right? And so every single investor went from completely pissed off to writing as big a check as they could to get into Apple, right? Because it was such an amazing insight. So the way that impacted me was I just thought it was short-sighted for people to use digital technologies as a cost-out initiative. Right. We should be using digital technologies to improve quality, to improve service, to achieve things that we can't achieve with the prior generation of technology. If the tool isn't allowing us to do something that we couldn't do before, then it's not really a tool at all. Not to say that cost out isn't a viable business strategy. It is. There are tons of companies that succeed on cost out. But for me, it seemed like the companies that were using digital technologies to take out cost weren't getting the full value of what that technology could do.
Mm-hmm. Again, it goes back to kind of that conversation you had with the extremely wealthy dentist orthodontist. It's leveling up, right? It's bringing something to the masses or bringing something out there that will change. Yeah. And so it sounds like that's where the thinking came, even in watching this YouTube or your new venture. Right. For
sure. And I think that that's also the common theme when you think about the team that we have at ProSomnus, is to talk about it a little bit. But the common thread between all of us is, like Sung, our chief technology officer, our co-founder, the reason why that guy excelled at a very young age in a company like 3M and did incredible work to make ProSomnus the company it is because he's trying to figure out how to use technology to make the world better, not just how to get cost out.
Right. Yeah.
Mark Murphy, as an educator, he's not trying to teach people how to use digital technologies to get cost out. He's trying to figure out how to use digital technology so we can all get better, to help you treat more patients, right? To help you expand your talents.
I love this conversation because when we implement technology into the practice, there's always a cost. You mentioned $40,000 and for a scanner, and that's probably the average cost. I think our first scanner was somewhere in the 42, 46. Our next scanner was in the 38 range. You can skimp a little bit here and there. The Medits are out for $20K now, which is a pretty good scanner.
Yeah.
But then you look at cone beam CT. That's $140K to put that in your office. And I was having this discussion with some management about, does the technology create more profit?
Mm-hmm.
And if you sometimes just look at the technology and the profit, you maybe can't tie a direct line to it and say that there's a direct correlation. But then there's all these other intangibles that you can see about, well, does it create more efficiency? Does it save a little bit more time? Does it create a better patient experience? Is it more marketable? Does it make you more marketable? Does it increase patient referrals? Do patients refer more people to you because you use that technology?
Right. You separate yourself.
You're separating yourself, and you can't always directly attribute some of those things to that. And, but I've never looked at the technology and in dentistry for sure, can I get this technology and get rid of a person?
Right.
To me, that's just not possible.
Right. It's, can you enable your
can I help my good people do a better job?
Exactly. Because
and improve the experience.
You may have been college before, but you're a scarce resource, right?
Yeah.
There's not as many people who can do what you do.
Yep.
Right. There's more patients who need your skills than there are hours in the day.
Absolutely.
So technology can help you do more.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in time, right? I just think, and you said it, and I appreciate you saying that, Brandon. To me, technology for me, just personal, I've taken off of business.
Yeah.
I've always been welcome to it. And I have a 77-year-old father I'm trying to introduce things to help with time, right? And it's little things, right? So for me, having empathy, and I love your story, by the way, because it's so true. The why behind the what. And so Brandon, you talking about the technology and me knowing your team and working with them, it makes sense to have that business decision. But it sounds like the landscape at the time, Len, if this is fair to say.
Sure.
Again, I'm new at this, so I apologize. The Norvell was that, am I saying it even right? From ResMed.
The Narval.
Okay, Narval.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying that, Len, is my background was Philips and CPAPs and all that other stuff. And I can remember when they started pushing that, and we're like, man, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense. It's CPAP, and we need to open the airway. And then, and then I noticed that they got out of North America.
Yeah.
It's around, are we bumping up around that same time period?
They exited about 2018, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, because I was still with, no, I had left Philips. No, I was still with Philips at the time that they kind of exit out. And I'm thinking, so when I had the opportunity I have now, that was kind of my experience. Man, that was nothing,
Yeah.
But it's so cool how that time frame is coming. So I'm just interested. I love that your passion, number one. I can tell you're very passionate, but just the reason, the why.
Yeah.
And so continue. Before Brandon rudely interrupts you
I'm so
with
sorry.
my face for radio and a shameless plug for Sleeping Around the podcast on YouTube.
Wonderful. Yeah, so we were in the process of selling Microdental to Modern Dental, the largest dental lab group in the world. Right. And just kind of back office stuff here. We had GAAP accounting because we were a US based company, but Modern Dental is based out of Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. So the actual merger, the acquisition was delayed by 9 months. Wow. Because we had to convert all the financials to IFRS standards. So during those 9 months, we knew that there was a plan in place.
Right.
And we kept hearing about dentists who were interested in dental sleep medicine.
Yeah.
More and more of Microdental customers, when I would speak to them on the phone, they'd say, I'm doing more of this dental sleep medicine thing. And it's great because it's a new revenue stream, medical insurance, which I don't have access to. It's something I know how to do. I know how to make splints. They
night guards at the time.
Night guards, they felt right, exactly. Right. They had made Herbst for class 2 correction in orthodontics.
Yeah, TAP had been around for years, right?
TAP
Old school.
Yeah. So dentists felt like that they could do it, that it was a good use of their chair time. Mm-hmm. But they also, were very clear in saying that they'd love to see if they could do something more with appliances. They felt that there were certain limitations with the appliances. And when they described some of the limitations of those appliances, it reminded us, me and Sung, of what we had heard from orthodontists when shifting from the standard brackets to the true precision personalized brackets.
Right.
And so can we use a digital manufacturing capability to access newer materials, more consistency, predictability, more personalization, so that it could result in potentially better outcomes, or maybe not better outcomes, but I think the way that we say it is fewer false negatives. Right. The papers that we were reading at the time, right, there were a series of papers showing that 80% of patients should, in theory, respond to mandibular repositioning as a mechanism of action. But when you put an oral appliance in somebody's mouth, a traditional oral appliance, only 55% did respond.
Right.
So we looked at that and said, well, where did the 25% go?
Right.
Yeah.
Where did it go? And that kind of goes back to some of our 3M Six Sigma training, right? Of like, what is the opportunity that we're going after? What's the defect rate? What's the false negative rate? And what could we do? What know-how could we bring to bear through technologies and materials and know-how to try to address that 25% gap? And it's not all in the appliances. Some of it's in the bite. There's a lot of other factors, right?
Right. But even back then, though, no, your thinking's right. It's like, okay, where is that other? It just disappeared. Right. There was a gap between what we call entitlement, how it ought to be,
right, and the real world practice of what it was, right? So there's a 25 percentage point gap. Patients who should resolve to an AHI below 10, who were not resolving to an AHI below 10. Why? Can we do something about that, right? And that's really what launched us down this path of ProSomnus, is trying to figure out the answer to that question. So we started reading papers by Andrew Wellman on biomechanical response and non-biomechanical response. And can we use some of the learnings from those papers to help us design better devices, right? I mean, that's kind of the stuff we went into.
Now, prior to this, now, had Micro 2 already developed the Micro 2? Was that already an appliance?
Yeah. So we developed the Micro 2. That was our first appliance that we developed
before
as we were doing all
before
of
the sale and before. So because then there was the sale of Micro 2 Dental, the dental lab.
Dental, that's right.
And you guys kept the appliance said, hey, we're going to form ProSomnus.
That's right.
And we're going to split and be just the sleep company.
Yeah. So again, the kind of the behind the scenes stuff is we created two subsidiaries under Microdental Holdings, right? One became ProSomnus as a subsidiary. The other subsidiary became Microdental Laboratories. We sold the Microdental Laboratories subsidiary, and then ProSomnus really became RemainCo. And ProSomnus became a standalone entity in late 2016 once Microdental Laboratories was merged with Modern.
So prior to all this, how much or what?
I know what you're going with this.
What did you know about sleep apnea? Like,
yeah.
I mean, you've done ortho, you've done consulting, craft, highways and RFID chips, and I mean,
curry specialist,
and then into dentistry, and so
yeah.
Did you know anything about sleep apnea? Did you have a clue? Was there any? Did you have any personal experience? Did you have any family? I mean.
No, I mean, I thought we all thought that snoring was a compliment to the chef. That's what I knew about snoring.
Yeah.
I will say that my first introduction to airway, the orthodontic community deserves credit for orthodontist of Rich McLaughlin, as well as Dwight Damon and James Ma, and these types of thought leading orthodontists. Yep. We're very cognizant of how orthodontic arch form affects airway. And there was a module in this company, Dolphin Imaging or Dolphin.
The software and the imaging
software company.
Yeah.
They had an airway analysis component to it. And so I didn't go deep into it. There's an oral surgeon, John Calangi, I think was his name. But so whenever I go to CE events, I actually try to sit in the back of the room and listen and learn. I don't want to take the seat of a paying customer or a paying doctor, but I try to, if I'm going to go to a CE event, I might as well learn as much as I can.
Well, being on the Bay Area, and Len, my story is unique too. It had to do with my spouse at the time and airway breathing. And I got into it in 99. But she had myofascial reconstruction surgery. in 2007. So I could tell you that Stanford seemed to be kind of that leader. So when I heard you, talk about that Bay Area, and we joke about it now, I mean, she had the full, basically the whole, everything's moved, chin and
the MMA.
Huge.
Sure. Yeah.
And we kind of laugh now because what I do, she's like, could I have solved everything with just but no, I mean, it was serious. It was airway, serious issues, not only, recessed, but I can remember. So I've been kind of on that periphery of airway for so long, even before I sold for Philips and stuff. Sure. But it's interesting, your journey, when you're talking about it, you're mentioning these names. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Did you have any involvement with some of those thought leaders at Stanford? I think you just mentioned one that maybe you were talking about.
One of the people we spoke with very early on was Derek Nordstrom. Okay. He's a dentist out of Stanford, and he looked at how to make different orthoses to achieve certain goals: orthodontic expansion, mandibular repositioning, stimulating the tongue, stimulating different things to try to, he just was, it was eye-opening. And he gave us, some indication that the design of the device was actually important, right? Not just the biomechanical function of moving the jaw forward, but how the device is designed can affect other factors, like what's the position of the tongue? Is the splint surface a familiar surface to the cheek or the tongue? And how might that affect loop gain, for example, or other things? So so it was very interesting speaking with some of the kind of the archaic Stanford
stuff
folks.
that they were doing not that long ago, from burning. From some people that suffered from what Kelly suffered with, I mean, they were just go ahead and just put in a hole, letting them breathe. And so it's just fascinating to me, not only what we're discussing right now, but just how far we've come in such a short time, right?
For sure.
And what you guys do at ProSomnus is amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
And I can say that. Yeah. And I think
it's mighty big of you.
The launching of the product and kind of changing and shaking up the industry was a good thing.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And for me, I think what I saw was a bunch of, how many appliances are on the market today? Or how many appliances are on the market?
There's probably a half dozen that matter, but there's well over 100 there's over 100 that are FDA cleared.
FDA cleared.
I was going to say even PDAC.
I want to say it's 100. I want to say it's like 138 devices that are FDA cleared to treat snoring and sleep apnea. And I can tell you that I use 3. Basically. Right. Okay. And I've tried personally at least 30. But what I can say is that the standard device was made in a very, going back to dental thinking way, from a dentist that created it, thinking like a dentist, a lab that created it, thinking like a lab, a standard dental lab.
Right. With the materials that were available to them.
The materials that they were used to using for other products. And so, I really kind of appreciate this idea that you guys came on and said, hey, there's a different way to do this that might be more effective.
And I love Keith Thornton. I think he's a pioneer. Sure. The TAP product, it is what it is, right? And I think, again, being involved in this sleep world as long as I have, but again, it's the innovation. And it's really looking at his sleep first.
Yeah. But the whole world is standing on his shoulders, right? I mean, and Alan Moses and Rob Rogers and all of these guys we're all standing on their shoulders. I agree. They helped us get to where we are today, but hopefully they are proud of people who are wanting to take the industry forward based on what worked or what didn't work with what they were doing. I think it's the best way to honor them.
We're not driving the same car we were in 1994. There's new technologies. There's gas efficiency. I'm being serious.
Right.
I know he still uses that.
I'm still using the same car that I drove in.
No, I was going to joke because I have one of these iPhones and I think I'm on a 12 or a 13. I've never had the fucking iPhone. I don't know what and I didn't know if you could order that.
Oh, man.
Dan, did you catch that? Is that like a new hip thing?
Jeez.
Brand new.
I don't have one of those.
Brand new. We'll get you one. We'll get you one. I promise.
They sound cool.
We'll get you hooked up, man.
Okay. So new technologies and the mindset, I apologize, that it's looking at it from the sleep perspective. And it's innovative. Yeah. And it's what you said is so important. Tongue position. And I, because I'm friends with Brandon now and getting to know a little bit more, learning every day, it's just such a difference. And when you put the products together, even though we stand on their shoulders, It's just such a difference.
Yeah, there's a different generation of devices that are out there, and
Yes, sir. Yes,
but
sir.
it's based on what was working and wasn't working in large part. Every time we identify a new technology opportunity, the first thing we do is, we get a group of doctors, we call it a VOC.
Right.
And so we try to interpret technology through the lens of experts who are wet fingered in the clinic every day. And we ask them to help interpret what the technology might,
And
or might not
I'm
be
not
able
a big
to do.
Trekkie, but Vulcans of change is good. Voices of the customer.
I gotta say, I do appreciate that about ProSomnus, and I want to, talk about your vision for ProSomnus.
Sure.
But does that go back to those consulting days and those panels and bringing the people in and the because what I've experienced working with ProSomnus is these meetings where we come in and maybe there's 20 docs in the room, maybe, I don't know, and they say, hey, we got some new ideas, guys. What do you think?
Right.
Basically, this is what I've experienced. Can I share what I've experienced?
Please do.
Hey, guys, we got some new ideas. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it's like literally an open forum. And sometimes there's a loose agenda, which almost never gets followed. And
That's usually the best.
and
though, isn't it?
then it's just this open discussion about,
Right.
well, that sounds really good, but what if you did this? Or
Right.
what I'd like to see, or what I've experienced when I use it in my practice, where my patients have complained about this, or my patients love this.
Yeah.
Right.
And it seems like every time we have these meetings, which is a couple times a year, and I've been very fortunate to attend a few. I wish you'd schedule them more around my schedule so that I could attend more of them.
Sure.
But it's
Does he have to get a hold of Alyssa too?
he does. But what comes out of it is a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, hey, we got a new prototype. Hey, we'd like you to beta test a new product. Hey, we've made some changes that we're implementing in our, whatever portal. And every time it takes into consideration everything that comes out of those meetings. And I think that's really cool that you use that to drive the company. And so, did that stem from some of those early consulting days, or where did that stem from?
Yeah, two places really. So when I was in grad school, I worked, did some PhD level work in radical innovation, and Joseph Schumpeter kind of described technology curves. And the challenge with commercializing products in different technology curves is that there can be a disconnect. And so the VOC events are really a way to begin preparing for a technology change. So that, we understand what works, what doesn't work. This guy, Dan Galvan out of Harvard, had this really famous paper called The 8 Dimensions of Quality, conformance quality being one of them. So we have to always take these new technologies, but make sure that they conform so that they're not so far disconnected that people won't trust them or try them. Because if that's the case, they won't get adopted or used.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of that insight, as to why we like to conduct these voice of customers. So when we have new technologies, we begin to socialize them. We begin to get, lead users like yourself, and who are not just users, but educators, beginning to think about what the new technology could or could not do, whether it would work or would not work. And so it facilitates the adoption curve of new technologies.
Well, I think another great thing about ProSomnus is what it sounds like is that you listen to these experts and go, okay.
Right.
Because they're the ones who are in the mouths every day. They see the patient every day. That's important. It's like a high level focus group, right? I've been part of focus group. I don't know if any of our viewers have. Mine was probably the coolest, if I could share a story.
Sure.
In 1994, I was part of the Budweiser focus group for a summer.
Was this the frog commercial?
You damn right.
Oh my God, no.
I got to see the frog. I got to see all these commercials, and they would do different versions of it. And it was two-way. They were looking at us to see how.
Did you get to drink Bud while watching the commercials?
No, but they let us watch, and they would measure our reactions and get our opinions on slightly changing things. And the following summer, I got asked to do it again. And for a kid who was, playing baseball and had this little bit of time, they would give me an amount of money. But it's funny because when the commercial finally came out, I'm big on this. that's kind of how I see this
Yeah.
in a serious way. You're taking the experts, right? And you're going, okay, what are you guys seeing out there? What do you think about this?
Right.
We're listening to what you're saying and we're going to adapt it. We're not saying it's going to happen,
Right.
but let's adapt it and see it, put it in a beta and let's see how it works. And then listen again. How did that patient respond? How did that? And so that sounds like there's just a great communication level from a company, right? We always think of these medical companies as non-touchable or whatever, but it just sounds like to be able to have that communication, we've talked about this, is key.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it more personal too.
That's what we're trying to do. There are a lot of really great business case studies. Like the first Nintendo Game Boy was Wi-Fi color high def, and the CEO said, go back and make it black and white, get rid of the Wi-Fi so that they could create an entry point that was more attainable from a price perspective, get people into the market, then add color, then add high def, then add Wi-Fi and ladder people up, as they became more comfortable with the technology. Or things like, Sony CEO, famous said, if you just went to a focus group and showed somebody an MP3 player in the late 80s, nobody would ever think that they would ever needed that.
Right.
But if you go in and describe, hey, would you like a device that could play 500 songs instead of just one cassette tape? Would you like that? So so there's an art to how you do this voice of customer and these surveys. Yeah. But it's really important to socialize these technology transitions.
I guess this is my psychology brain, and I hope you don't mind me asking this, but that's interesting because don't we live in a culture now where we want everything now?
Sure.
You had mentioned a little bit about, not jumping into technology because you don't want to be first. You want to be kind of, but it's like, I get now that, and I'll talk about me. Louis C.K. had this great bit. Sure. He's on an airplane and the Wi-Fi isn't working. He's like, this is ridiculous. And he doesn't think that he's in a plane that takes off, flies above. That's got to also be a challenge now. I mean, just technology, there's always something. There's always wanting to put it out there. So I don't know if we could do that in where we're at today as far as the MP3. And
well, I'd say you're right, Matt. There is also this restlessness, at least with the ProSomnus team, that every night millions of people go to sleep and they're getting suboptimal sleep, and some of them will maybe even die in their sleep because they don't have the right therapy. Yep. And every night there are people who wear their CPAP for the first couple hours, take it off to go to the bathroom, never put it back on. 100%. And they have a heart attack in the early part of the morning. Yep. And to us, all of those are, those are the things that motivate us, to keep going, to keep innovating, because just like the difference between the 55% who do respond versus the 80% who should respond, same thing, right? We've got, maybe 10% of people in healthy treatment, whether it's CPAP, hypoglossal nerve stimulation, oral appliances, maybe 10% of the sleep apnea population in successful, stable therapy, right? Man, there's so much opportunity for us to do more.
Man, so I've been dying. This is one of the major questions I've been dying to ask you when I knew we were going to have you on, sir. Obviously, I was affected by Philips recall because I have dear friends. It was one of my most favorite jobs, and I'm being dead serious. I still vacation with these people. They've been in weddings and baby showers. I mean, so I'm sad, right? But also the Philips recall has shined a light on this world to say there are truly other options out there. We had a guest on who was a CEO that I believe you met. He was 100% Philips. Yeah. And now, where's he at? And we've introduced him to oral devices in this new world. Yeah. ProSomnus had to also just say, here's an opportunity, not greed, but here's an opportunity to save those apneic patients out there that are at a 30 AHI or below, mild, moderate, or even those severe, because whatever CPAPs are available that ResMed can get out there and help out, they need to go for those, centrals and more serious.
Complex OSA patients are going to need a CPAP.
As comfortable as you are knowing our positions. But I was just so excited to go, oh my gosh. And now I'm educating even more going, guys, the technology is so different because there's still people out there that think, oh man, it's just for snoring or it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
I'll shut up.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is one of the things that we're proud of is that there's a study out of Belgium that's called the FLOSAT study, Frontline OSA Treatment Study. Olivier van der Veeken's the principal investigator, and it's spawned for that exact reason, right? He's got 300 plus patients in his hospital and he cannot get a CPAP for them.
Yep.
And science says that treatment with oral devices is better than no treatment. So he took that to the ethics board and said, even though we have a CPAP first policy in Belgium, can I get ethics board approval to at least put these people into treatment until I can get them a CPAP? And so he turned that into a sequential crossover study where they're all going to get oral appliances first, track how they do. Then when the CPAPs become available, cross them over into CPAP, let them wear the CPAP for a commensurate amount of time. Then at the end, they're going to compare the data and ask the patients about quality of life and preference. And if you could only keep one, which one would you keep? And so it's, so I think there are a lot of opportunities, whether it be, as you say, Matt, an individual doc who's trying to figure out how to segment their own patient population and get them into therapy.
Well, and again, just because
like
I sold
studies.
the CPAPs, I know that there's these huge opportunities where these people buy, these DME companies or whatever, they buy 300 a month.
Right.
Where there's just a mom and pop down there that maybe, do 20. ResMed isn't rushing to fulfill those Philips loyalists.
And they can't, because they can't get chips. Even if they wanted to, they can't get the chips right now, right? I mean, we had Mick Farrell saying, hey, instead of the chips going into another new iPhone, maybe the chips should be reserved for medical devices.
And maybe you'll appreciate this and maybe you won't. So I was part of some AESM boards. Again, the whole fun thing to do with Zooming and all that. And we had a presenter talking about the significance of an oral device. And one of these people raised their hands and wanted to talk, and a very predominant person was like, yeah, but what's the turnaround time to get an oral device these days? And my dumb butt pushes the hand raise. They call on me and I go, I'll tell you right now, you can get an oral device a lot faster than you get a CPAP. And man, these crickets. No, they were all like, ooh, that's so true. And I could never say that honestly from but it's true. It's true. And then that's an interesting study because my understanding, and again, teach me because I don't know, that North America and that Norval, am I saying it right, is still outside of North America. But I always assumed that outside of North America that they were using more oral devices first line than they do in the States where they go CPAP first.
That's really a good question and a great segue because ProSomnus is expanding internationally, right? I mean, we got this project now. We're in Spain. We're y'all are in England and the UK,
Belgium.
Belgium. What are you seeing internationally that drove you to those markets, and how's that going?
Yeah, it's going very well. So we're kind of in a controlled launch, alpha launch in certain countries. It's going great. Like in the United States, there are a group of passionate physicians and dental sleep medicine providers who want to make a difference in the world and want to make a difference in the world, but also want to make a difference in their communities. And so in that regard, there are a lot of similarities. Some of the rules and regulations are different. Some of the reimbursement schemes are different. But really, they're not that big of a hurdle administratively. But I will say, I think one of the big things is that there are countries, as Matt mentioned, where oral appliances are the frontline treatment. They have more of a triage approach where they use the least expensive, least invasive therapy first. If that doesn't work, then they go to the next thing in the line. And then if that doesn't work, then they go to the next thing.
Which isn't that how it should be? I mean, doesn't that just make fucking sense?
I've been a big believer, and I've said this on this podcast, and you've witnessed it, and you've seen me. I don't care what we do. Let's help people breathe, right? So I don't care if you cut on them. I don't care.
We shouldn't cut them first, though.
I'm just saying the options. But why are we not starting?
Well, I don't know. And I'm sorry, I get frustrated with this, but I just think there's so many people, and when we start to see this bickering between the different modalities, it just seems ridiculous because we just need to be helping people.
Right.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Tell me, Len, what's your vision for ProSomnus? Has it changed over these 5 years? And where do you see it going over the next 5 years?
Speaking of vision, there's the chairman of the board.
Oh.
Frank
You must know
Sinatra?
we're talking about vision.
Frank Sinatra's calling you? Man, this is great.
Well, I would say so look, the objective for the business is what we talked about is being able to make sure that every person with sleep apnea gets diagnosed and has a pathway to get into good, healthy therapy that best fits their clinical condition and their preferences. Someone with complex sleep apnea with a history of cardiovascular disease probably is a candidate for something other than oral appliance therapy. But
Agreed.
oral appliance therapy is so grossly underutilized compared to the guidelines.
100%.
And I think informed consent has a long way to go. Most patients are not made aware that they might have other treatment options. I think, Matt, what you're doing is really important. I mean, the number of physicians that we come across who are not aware of the latest guidelines. They're not aware that oral appliances are considered co-equal therapy. They're not aware that it comes down to patient
Len, I could
preference.
get in trouble on this podcast, and I don't know why we don't have legislate. We should have people down there just banging on legislation, showing them that. Again, I don't want to get too preachy, but I agree. They're just there's ignorance, and then there's
Well, and I'll say it a different way. Like a lot of the sleep medicine physicians are pulmonologists and cardiologists, internal medicine people. They're really busy, right? They're really busy doing a lot of
Super
things.
busy.
I don't think that they're trying to be ignorant or difficult. They just it's our obligation to get in their way and say, we just want to make you aware. We want to educate you.
agree.
And then you can go on making your decisions. But the number of people who are not educated, they don't have easy access to guidelines or to webinars that give them updates on oral appliance therapy.
Len, even my Rolodex, the other Brandon in my life, we joke. We're like, it's you go in and you're educating these who's supposed to be AESM. They have all these, credentials there, and we're educating them about an oral device and how important it is and how many studies there are out there on oral devices. It's crazy that it's so you're right. I do think it's going to take us continuing, and in light of, a worldwide pandemic and then this recall, that's what I meant. I think that it's coming to light. I think that there are more and more, at least in my life, small segment of my life, they're going, oh, wow, here's an aha moment going, it does work.
There's two reasons to buy a car, right? There's the positive stimuli, which is I want a new car.
Right.
I want to drive faster, or I want to be safer, or you have children seeing a minivan.
Right.
There's these positive circumstances that inspire you to consider buying a new car.
Right.
Then there are negative circumstances like got in a car accident. Oh shit, I got to get a new car. Same thing is true here, right? There's a negative circumstance right now, the CPAP recall, which creates an opportunity for us to educate sleep medicine physicians that, hey, you've got this circumstance. Sorry, but let's work the problem. And I think that it's an important opportunity for us.
100%. I know we could talk to you all night. I have so many questions for you, Len.
Sure.
I could get into the nationals, right? I told Brandon if I could figure out this key into the nationals, because I have relationships with the apneas of the world. Yeah. And they're like, how can we do this? I'm like, well, there's laws that I can't just do this. Yeah. And that's why I was saying, I wish there was a way, and it's people like you and your influence as a CEO and your company and what you guys have done already in innovation that gives me hope. Yeah. In my current company too, going, wow, we're on the cusp of something so close. Yeah. So close. So I just really just appreciate your time and your passion.
But to finish your question about vision, and thinking about it, I think that there's a misconception that, there's a big, Harvard Business, big, hairy, audacious goal, and people want to go for the big, hairy, audacious goal, and they get obsessed with it. And it's like a baseball batter always swinging for a home run. Sometimes you need a base hit or a double or a triple and manufacture runs, right? And so we try to do both. We try to have some home run projects that can really make an immediate impact. But if you think about how to cross a river, you can try to jump across a river, or you can figure out which stones to step on to get you across the river with a high probability of success, right? And so we try to do both. So we have a dream, a vision, a big, hairy, audacious goal of trying to make the world a better place by helping people sleep better, and not just for cardiovascular outcomes, but for everyday quality of life. And for people who are performance athletes or high performance individuals, for
military,
a bus driver who's driving a bus full of kids, who's drowsy driving, machine operators, military people. But in fact, we're so passionate about achieving those goals that we want to have very deliberate, achievable steps along the way, hopefully achieve some tipping points if external circumstances come along, the CPAP recall, that help expedite the process. Wonderful. Yeah. Right. But, I
don't think it changed your vision. It's just,
no, that's right. It may accelerate.
What'd you say earlier? There's luck.
Yeah. And we'd love to have both.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about vision, but it's also about how do you go about achieving that vision in a tangible, credible, believable way, in a way that optimizes risk reward.
Yep. Well, I appreciate what you guys do, Len, and I got to compliment you and just say what the company growth that you guys had it's been fairly exponential in the last few years, and in terms of the products, the revenue, the growth, the impact that you're having in the industry. I mean, market share, what would you say your market share is at now for where compared to where you were 5 years ago?
Oh, infinitely.
Yeah.
We had no market share 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, 3 years ago even.
UT education, everybody. So if you're starting off at zero, Len.
I didn't go to Brown.
Len, if you're starting off at zero, it's 5 years.
But honestly, as a user and I know that it helps my patients, both of you guys. I know that both of your products help my patients. All the appliances that I use help my patients, but I know your products help my patients. Yeah. I appreciate the work that you guys do, and the continued innovation that you're striving for, and the vision that you have for having this impact and improving the world and improving people's sleep and breathing. I think it's important. I think it goes a long way. And I think the fact that you have that vision is going to continue to propel you guys, especially under your leadership. And so just kudos to you. Yeah. I know we're running up on time here, but I appreciate you coming down to Austin from the Bay Area. I'm sorry we're not quite as
what are you thinking?
I don't know. He's not used to being so free here.
Here we go.
And so I'm glad you got to experience a little bit of freedom.
All right, Len, I apologize in advance.
And,
I know.
But I do want to say something real quick. I do want to say something. This is how dedicated Len is to his craft. Handsome Dan, can we get a shot of these socks?
I was going to point that out myself.
The man wears ProSomnus.
I was going to point that out myself.
I mean, if that doesn't tell you, and he gets a call from Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Hey, Len, thank you so much.
Thanks,
I'm going to cheers you in your water.
Thank you.
Thank you for sleeping around with Dr. Brandon and Matthew. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Man, I feel like
chicken tonight?
No. I feel like we just have so many, we just run out of time every time.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about.
His phone rang and you said it was chairman of the board. And I was like,
it was Lang calling,
And I was like, well, I didn't know that,
That's not
often most podcasts don't get really good until the 45-minute mark. And then it's every podcast, all of them. Rogan included.
Yeah.
It's because then
there's a warm up.
Because then you get lost in the conversation. That's what it is.
Yeah.
We're gonna have you sign this. He's gonna video.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
When the sun goes down and the moon is high, we'll be chasing stars to the morning light. Come on,